Today on Sugar Spun Run, I'm showing you how to make my favorite apple cake. Hey Sugar Spun Bakers, Sam here, and today I am doing something a little bit risky. I'm taking my grandmother's famous apple cake and don't tell any of my family members, but I've made a couple changes to make it even better. Now I've already tested this recipe several times, given it to my family to taste test it, and it's gotten rave reviews. I think you're going to love it just as much. Just don't tell my grandmother that I made a couple tweaks. Now you know the drill, get your oven preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit and let's get started. Now the first thing we're going to do is make a nice cinnamon sugar topping by mixing together a half cup of granulated sugar and 1 tablespoon of ground cinnamon. Mix these together really well. One of these days I'm going to use a bowl that's bigger than it needs to be instead of smaller. You'll need 3 cups of peeled, diced apples for this recipe, and as you can see, mine are already starting to turn brown. I cut them like 5 minutes ago. It happens really quickly. We're going to add 2 tablespoons of our cinnamon sugar mix to this. Now in a separate bowl, we're going to whisk together 3 cups of all-purpose flour, 1.5 cups of granulated sugar, 1 cup of firmly packed light brown sugar. Now my grandmother's recipe, she used all granulated sugar, but I love the extra flavor and the extra moisture that using brown sugar adds. Add a tablespoon of baking powder, a teaspoon of salt, and a half teaspoon of ground cinnamon. I'm gonna use my favorite spoon to stir everything together. One thing I love about this recipe is that everything can be stirred together by hand, which unfortunately for my lonely mixer back there means it spends another day in the background. Now we're going to save ourselves a dish by making a well in the center of our dry ingredients, and this is where we're going to combine all our wet ingredients, starting with 1/2 cup of canola oil, 1/2 cup of melted unsalted butter. In my grandmother's recipe, she uses 1 full cup of vegetable oil. Because I wanted to add a better flavor to the cake, we're using half oil and half butter. The oil gives the cake a really nice moist texture, while the butter adds some great flavor. We'll add 4 large room temperature eggs, 1/3 cup of buttermilk. In my grandmother's recipe, she actually uses orange juice. You could definitely substitute that, but I like the added moisture and flavor from the buttermilk. And 2.5 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Before you incorporate your wet and dry ingredients, you want to make sure your wet ingredients are nicely combined and your eggs are lightly beaten. So I'm just going to carefully scramble everything together. Make sure to break up those egg yolks. Now we'll carefully stir together our wet and dry ingredients until they're just combined. Now let's stir in those apples. Spread your batter evenly into a lightly greased 13x9 baking pan. Get all this out of here. No batter left behind. And don't forget about your cinnamon sugar topping from earlier. Who needs icing when you've got cinnamon sugar topping? Now take this over to your 350 degree Fahrenheit preheated oven where it's going to need to bake for about 40 to 50 minutes. You can use a toothpick to test if the cake is done, but because this cake's a little bit more dense and those apples can sometimes get in the way, I like to stick a clean knife in the center just to get a feel for if it's done or if it's still a little gooey and underbaked in there. Once it's baked, let that apple cake cool a little bit and then we can go ahead and dig in. This is still a little bit warm, so the cake might be a little fragile. And that is how you make the absolute best apple cake of your life. Just don't tell my grandmother that I changed the recipe. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. So good.